Whether they were helping kids get over heartbreak with a comforting hug or casually inflicting emotional trauma over a 3-martini lunch, there have been countless memorable mothers over the course of television history. From Donna Reed to Dr. Rainbow Johnson, Wilma Flintstone to Lois Griffin, the small screen has given us all kinds of moms we can look up to or identify with, and in some cases, given us some deliciously bishy targets from which to work out our own unresolved mommy issues. Now the Great Pop Culture Debate Podcast wants to have a family meeting to decide who is the best TV mom of all time. Forever suffering from Arrested Development, I'm your host, Eric Rezsnyak, and I love all of my panelists equally. I don't care for Curtis.
I'm right here, Lucille.
Oh, good, you're here. Did nothing cancel? Please welcome the rest of my panel. She would love to be wrong, but she doesn't live with the right people for that. Welcome back to our modern podcast family, Amy Pilott.
Thank you. Just wish I was bringing Claire Dunphy, my girl, with me to round 2.
I know, she went out in round 1. Oh. He once allowed his best friends to spend the night in prison so he could steal their tickets to see Mr. Burt Reynolds. It's my personal Sophia Petrillo, Curtis Creekmore.
Well, to be fair, all of my friends are whores.
It's true, I'm one of them. And she also once saved her town from a con man selling faulty monorails. Please welcome back Rochester's Marge Simpson, Kara Austin.
Main Street's still all cracked and broken. Sorry, Mom, the mob has spoken.
Exactly. Monorail. Before we get to the debate, let's go over how this works. We put up an open poll with more than 100 of the most memorable TV moms of all time. For this survey, we focus strictly on fictional characters, no reality TV moms here, and moms from primetime television. More than 70 people took the poll to pick their favorite moms, and then we took the top 32, ranked them by popularity, and added them to a bracket. Now we argue about it and insult each other, all for your amusement. Want to play along at home? Head to greatpopculturedebate.com and click on the polls and brackets section. There you'll find the listener bracket for this and every episode of the podcast. Make a copy for yourself, fill it out with your picks, and see if your picks match up with our panelists. Do you think we're out of line and need to go to our rooms? Drop a comment on this episode at greatpopculturedebate.com or give us a stern talking to on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube. And now we're going to move right on to the debates. For season 3 onward, we are starting right at the C16, and if you want to check out which moms got eliminated in round 1, as Amy mentioned, Claire Dunphy from Modern Family already has, become a Patreon supporter and listen to our exclusive warm-ups. First up, it's Moira Rose from Schitt's Creek, our ultimate number 1 seed, versus Violet Crowley, the Dowager Countess from Downton Abbey, a 4 seed. Curtis, peruse the wig wall and select the perfect do to support Moira, while Kara sharpens her wits and her hat pins to stump for Vi, and I'm going to have Curtis go first.
My gay little heart is ripping in two. This is probably the hardest one for me in what is left of the bracket. I love both of these characters so very much. I aspire to be both of them on different days of the week. I love Schitt's Creek. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. And Moira is such an amazing character. Catherine O'Hara is a treasure. She does an amazing job in this role. And if we had Halloween, thanks pandemic, my plan was to go as Moira Rose, a very specific Moira Rose. For those of you who have watched the final season, I think it's in like episode 1 or 2. She's trapped in the closet, and then there's the fire, and then there's a scene of her sitting outside the hotel or the motel with all of her wigs kind of spread all across her, and she just looks shell-shocked. And that's what I was going to do. I was going to sew several wigs to my body and then just sit around looking shell-shocked everywhere, and it was going to be the best. So that's not a reason why to pick her, but that's what I'm going to go with.
All right, Kara, what have you got for Violet Crowley?
I feel like it's a battle of the wigs versus a battle of the hats.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it is.
And she can turn a stunning hat. If you subscribe to Patreon, you can hear the full argument from round 1, but Violet Crowley is... she's the person, when she's on screen, you're looking for her and you're waiting to hear what she has to say. I mean, she uses that wit to strike down powerful men and put people in their place. But she is often doing that in some way to support her children and a lot of times her grandchildren. And I mean, being a grandmother is an extension of being a mother. You don't get to that without, doing an all right job at the first thing. And she's kind of caught in this battle of two fronts where she's trying to, keep the legacy of her family together and the old ways of doing things. Like, she's horrified idea of what's a weekend or any sort of change. Like, the idea of like Edith getting a job and writing and working. And so she's not always forward thinking, but when it comes down to doing, trying to support her, but, especially her grandchildren, she'll move heaven and earth to do it. And in moving heaven and earth, she, does, because of her, mainly because of her gender and because of, she doesn't hold any power anymore. She has to kind of use every trick in the book and still, retain this kind of ladylike presence while she's doing it. So she's crafty and conniving in good ways and bad. She's, certainly has her flaws, but at the heart of it, she's trying to, create a safe and secure future for her family.
Fair. So Amy does not like / has not watched either of these shows. Amy, has either of these arguments persuaded you one way or the other?
I mean, I don't like hats, so
Yeah.
So I think and because just in recent times I have to stand with Viscountess Violet Bridgerton, and she is now my official British female figure. I'm gonna have to go with Moira here.
Okay. I respect that. You can't have, you can only have one old timey British Violet on your card at one time.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, there you go. So I will also, I love the Dowager, and I think especially, I mentioned this in the Patreon, her relationship with Edith in particular I found really endearing. But I also, when Kara was talking, it occurred to me her absolute horror at Sybil wearing pants. Or when Mary got a short haircut, she was appalled. But I think she's a great character, obviously played to perfection by Maggie Smith. But in terms of which one is a better mother, I am going to give it to Moira Rose here from Schitt's Creek. So she will be advancing. Sorry, Dowager. Next up, tragic she-wolf Catelyn Stark from Game of Thrones, a 6 seed, has to outlift the seemingly immortal Morticia Addams of the Addams family, a 2 seed. Amy, explain why Catelyn is a cut above the rest. Sorry. Well, I will entwine with the ennui of Morticia. I'm going to have Amy go first.
I just don't know how else to talk about Catelyn Stark other than she got her throat cut for her children. I mean, she just literally traveled the earth on behalf of her family. She was the fact that we're actually having this conversation and we're talking about her and spoiler alert, she dies in season 2 of a 6-season show. It says that she is a prominent matriarch of the Stark family, and her presence is felt throughout the entire series, even though she is not there. And if I was to die a brutal death for my children, I would like to know that they are going to live on, and my legacy will live on with them for many, many years and be prominent to everyone around them. So
let us hope it does not come to that. But yeah, you make a good argument. Let me ask this, Kara or Curtis, are either one of you inclined to vote for Morticia over Catelyn here?
Absolutely not.
Curtis?
I don't think so.
Yeah. I had an argument prepared for Morticia, but in the interest of expediency, and because I frankly agree with Amy's argument that Catelyn kind of is a great example of the incredibly superhumanly protective mom, that there were a couple that Joyce Byers was in round 1, she got knocked out, but there are a couple others that I can think of off the top of my head from TV. But I think Catelyn is like the version of them in terms of, like, she is by far like no one suffers more than Catelyn Stark to protect her children, and it turns out mostly for the best, except for Robb, justice for Robb. I will say this for Morticia, I think she's a great mom in many reasons. Curtis covered several in the warm-up, but I will also say she's a fantastic wife, and I think we should all aspire to have the kind of marriage that Gomez and Morticia do. So God bless her. So next up, bold sweater aficionado Clara Huxtable from The Cosby Show, a 1 seed, is up against bold singer Edith Bunker from All in the Family, a 4 seed. Amy, give us a supportive yet stirring pep talk regarding Claire, while Curtis explains why we should stay with the bunker. And I want to start with Curtis.
Oh boy. So I actually did not watch the Cosbys as a kid, or now for that matter. I didn't get the same connection to Claire that so many other people have and do. And obviously she was the second overall seed. So she was the second most voted for mom on this list. So probably poor Edith is going down, but I do feel like I have to go to bat for her again. She's like the every mom. She is so kind and so willing to support her children. And she only had one, Gloria, who was a bit of a mess. She was a hot mess. She got into trouble. She had an affair while she was married to that meathead of a husband that she had. And, you know, Edith was still there for her and supported her and still loved her. And Edith is the type of mom that I think a lot of other moms were built from. I don't have much of a better reason to support her other than that. And she has a beautiful singing voice.
Lies. That's fine.
Like an angel.
What have you got for Claire Huxtable, Amy?
Okay, so I first also want to put a big asterisk on Claire Huxtable. That I feel badly for her, because I think that if we were recording this 5 or 10 years from now, I think a lot less people are going to even know of Claire Huxtable, because sadly, Mr. Cosby has taken her down in some ways, I think, and the show is not going to live up to what it was based on the person. And for those of you who are subscribers, you heard us talk about Roseanne earlier, and I think similar story. So I just want to put that out there. But with all of that said, Claire Huxtable was, groundbreaking. Glass ceiling shattering, African-American mom of 5 who is a career woman. She's the matriarch of the family. She's bright. She goes up against her son-in-law when he's being a chauvinist. There's so many moments of Claire Huxtable as this strong, powerful, feminine icon. And Felicia Rashad hopefully continues to thrive. She has still been in many things, and I love whenever I see her. So I think that we spoke again in the earlier episode in the warm-ups that if you were subscribing, you may have heard, we talked a lot about some of these 80s career moms, the Keatons and Maggie Seaver. But Claire Huxtable's all of that, and she was an African-American woman, and at a time that just wasn't happening. So, I look at her, and I don't think we even talked about it then, because she was just so fabulous at it. So I've got all my money on Claire Huxtable here, and I think that she's the one of the strongest figures that we were talking about tonight.
I agree with that completely. Kara, where are you coming down on this?
Curtis and I are apparently siblings, because I never watched the Cosby Show either. I only knew him before everything that's come to light. I was like, he's the guy who eats Jell-O and pudding pops. Asks children to say dumb things. But I really think that Amy's argument, but defense of her really got to me, and I think I'm going to switch my choice to Claire, because I feel horrible that I think she's right that this is a show that's not going to get the rewatch. It's not going to be rewatched. It's not going to be now streaming on Hulu. Like, no one's going to promote it because of the terrible person who is attached to it, and other people's really good performances and quality characters are going to be lost. So that, and I think especially having a prominent Black woman in that role, in that family, if we take Bill Cosby out of it, that's important, and that, she should move on. She should move on to the next bracket.
I agree. And I think that Amy's argument there was real. I mean, Claire in a bubble. That was a great argument for her. And I'm going to vote for Claire. So she's moving on. But I think really that argument that this is a show that is almost certainly going to completely fall into obscurity when it was a powerhouse. If you were not around in the 80s, The Cosby Show, I believe, was the highest rated show on network television for many years. It was huge. It was that weird thing where even in a still very racist America, and we're in 2021, it's still a very racist America, for whatever reason, Cosby hit the same way Oprah and Will Smith do, where people just didn't see them as people of color so much. They just saw them as, oh, I like those folks, right? And they embraced them. That's what the Cosbys were. They were huge with all demographics. And now that show is going to fall into obscurity because of what happened. And that's crazy. So, yeah, I'm moving on Clara Huxtable. Anybody have anything else to say on that?
Nope.
All right. Sorry, Edith.
I'm really happy, though. This is the first time I've won this.
Well, there you go. Next up, it's Peg Bundy, who is a 6 seed, versus the longest running mother on television, Marge Simpson, a 2 seed. I will support Peg Bundy. Kara, make like Blanche Dubois in Streetcar, the musical, and sing passionately yet tenderly for Marge.
Bring it, Rezsnyak. This is the ultimate TV mom, Marge Simpson. And I feel like I have asterisk. My passion for The Simpsons, and the only seasons I recognize are seasons 1 through about 12, and after that they kind of lose the heart of it. But Marge is a mom and a wife in really a terrible trope of a lot of moms and wives in TV, and especially like sitcom TV, whereas the husband is not even useless, but actively useless. Keep actively useless. But Marge is the heart of that family, and where Homer is just an awful father and husband and provider in every possible way, Marge is the one who's bringing the humanity to the show, who's taking care of the children, and not just in just the basics like food, clothing, whatever. She's I'm trying to think. She's all the ways that you want your mom to be, but she still messes up in the ways that your mom probably was. And one of my favorite episodes and moments of that is when Lisa is going through a funk and she's sad all the time, and she's sad in class. And there's Marge is trying to pep her up, and towards the end of the episode, she's driving Lisa to school, and she thinks back to her own mother. And giving her a pep talk saying, you have to smile no matter what, because when you're smiling, that lets everybody know what a good mother you have. So it's very important to smile. And so, thinking back on that, what Marge originally takes from it is that I need to, pass this on to my daughter. And it's like, Lisa, you need to smile, because that's how people are going to like you. You need to change who you are. Doesn't matter what's happening on the inside. And I think she says, like, my mom always told me to take the sad stuff and just push it way deep down until it's like you're walking on it. She drops Lisa off at school, and Lisa is just forcing the smile, and Marge is still in the car watching as these 2 kids who have never noticed her before, but notice her because she's smiling, start to be friends with her. But then they're like, hey, why don't you do my homework later? And then the band teacher comes out, and he's an asshole to her, and Lisa's just smiling like, this is all okay. And Marge in that moment realizes how bad that advice is and how it didn't work for her. And she like tears the car onto the lawn in front of the school and grabs Lisa. And in this moment, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about this, because it's like what you want your parents to do. She's like, Lisa, I was wrong. You feel your feelings. You don't have to feel anything that you're not feeling the moment. If you are going to be sad, then I'm going to be here while you're sad. And when you feel better, you let us know. You you feel your feelings, and you be you, and we will she's like, we will always be here for you. And it's like, God, that's what every child needs. And without her, the family falls apart. She goes away for a weekend, and like Homer and I forget where Lisa is, but Homer and Bart are literally making garbage angels in the living room. She's risen to every challenge, put her. She became a cop when she thought that was something she wanted to do. She fought against the monorail, and she was right. It was terrible.
That's right. I got nothing, folks. I know when my ass is kicked, my ass is kicked. No, that's that. And frankly, that story you told about Marge, that scene is exactly, I think, why we wanted to do this episode, which is that TV moms can sometimes fill that void that we don't feel that we're getting in real life. And Marge is a mom who's realistic. She's not some absurd, like Donna Reed type of untouchable archetype. Nothing against Donna Reed. But she is also, she's great. She's a great mom. So I'm not even going to attempt. I will say Peg Bundy, lover, fashion icon.
Peg Bundy.
Yeah. Is anybody willing to support Peg over Marge at this point? Or are we just moving on?
Moving on.
Picture it. The majority of the panel wants to put forth Sophia Petrillo from the Golden Girls, a 1 seed, while I believe the chosen one is Joyce Summers from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, a 4 seed. Amy, explain why I belong in Shady Pines and promote Sophia, while I stake my reputation on Joyce. And I'm going to have, you know what, I'll go first, because I'm pretty sure that you're going to win this argument, Amy. Joyce, as one of our writers in said, that Joyce Summers had to put up with like twice as much as any other mother on this list. She woke up one morning and she suddenly had a mystical teenage daughter who was a brat, and this is true. And she already had a mystical teenage daughter who was out every night slaying vampires and saving the world. Joyce is a great teen mom, teen show mom, in that she is utterly clueless about what's going on. When she actually gets clued into what's happening, she at least makes an effort to be there for Buffy, even though she doesn't understand it and does not like the fact that her daughter is literally putting herself within death's reach night after night, and in fact does die at least twice. But she still gets that this is what Buffy has to do, and she doesn't understand why. She's great. Christine Sutherland does a great job playing her. The episode where she dies completely out of nowhere is gripping television. It is incredibly moving, incredibly sad. Everybody involved does a great job. But that said, she is up against Sophia Petrillo from the Golden Girls, and I'm going to give it to Amy because I'm pretty sure this is a slam dunk for you. Go for it.
I'll start with saying, have I given you any indication at all that I care? So Sophia was like the queen of one-liners. She was the ultimate mom to a group of moms. I mean, we've talked a little bit about that when you get to be a grandmother, that's, you know, what do they say? Like, only the best moms get promoted to grandma. Well, like, Sophia was that and a bag of chips. I mean, she was the ultimate grandma, the ultimate mom. To be a mom to Dorothy and come off as the mom and still be able to put Dorothy in her place every single episode, like that's a mom. The mom always wins. Sophia always wins. Sophia has won this battle. I'm not even done talking, and Sophia has won this battle. So, yeah. So I'm sorry to the vampires, but I don't see how I could say anything else that's going to matter.
I think you're probably right. I'm out here on the lanai by myself, which is a bad place for vampires to be, I should say. Curtis, where are you on this?
Really? Do you have to ask? I mean, I have the friggin' purse in my room within arm's reach.
So it's Joyce for you, right? Okay. And Kara, how about you?
I'm broadcasting live from inside that purse, so.
All right. Well, the category is cheesecake.
The acoustics are amazing.
Cheesecake.
Cheesecake. I want cheesecake now real bad. All right. The majority of the panel wants to have Pop in the Attic with Lucille Bluth from Arrested Development, a 6 seed. But can she withstand the Wessonality of Carol Brady of the Brady Bunch, a 2 seed? I'm going to open this up for discussion. Is anybody here going to vote for Lucille over Carol Brady? Curtis, where are you coming down on this one?
Yes. Lucille over Carol Brady.
Okay. Amy?
I'm going to go Carol Brady.
All right. Kara?
Buster, it's just a bird.
I'm torn. I will argue this for Carol. If we are talking about TV moms, she's literally iconic. Take a drink. She, like, when you think of TV moms, I would say she's going to be in her top 5, whereas Lucille is a terrible mother.
Yes.
Like, she is
awful.
possibly the worst mother on this list. Like, if Cersei Lannister had made the bracket, she wouldn't be worse than Cersei, but she's close.
That's only because she hasn't actually murdered anybody or caused disfigurement.
Fair.
That we,
That we know of.
of.
Exactly.
Well, wait, a Lucille did take Buster's hand, so
It did. That said, Lucille is an amazing character. We've discussed this, that you can be a terrible mom, but a great character, and that's Bluth. But Carol Brady is a great character, but now that I'm actually thinking about it, Carol's not a great mom. She has Alice do most of the work. What does Carol Brady do all day?
Carol was really good at giving advice, I think.
Yes.
Especially with like, and I'm arguing against myself here, but with all of those different kids and their different personalities, and she had to put up with Jan of all the children.
Speaking as a Jan Brady, I take offense to this.
Well, I think we can all agree that she was the most problematic of all of them.
Sure.
But I think she handled that middle child syndrome with grace, and she always supported those children regardless of what they were going through. And sometimes it was when they were fighting each other. Like, as any mother who has more than one child knows, like, you really can't take sides in the moment. And I think she did a really good job of doing that in the episode where the line Marsha, Marsha, Marsha comes from. And it was only said once, apparently. Jan really is just bugged with Marsha. She wants to get out of her shadow. And so she enters this essay contest and she ends up winning. And when they're getting ready to give her the award, Jan finds out, oh, I didn't actually win. And she has this like decision to make of, does she tell the truth and tell the teacher that she didn't win and that there was a mistake, or does she take the award and get out of Marsha's shadow? And she ends up telling the teacher. So they announce like, oh, she didn't actually win. And Carol says, well, honey, sometimes when we lose, we win. But she always had those like little sage pieces of advice for all her kids, like regardless of what they were going through, which I think is really nice. But I'm still voting for Lucille because I fucking love her.
Lucille had a lot of good advice too. She'd often tell Lindsay, get a job. And better to be alive in California or dead in California than alive in Arizona. I mean.
And that's still true today.
It is still true today. And she did hate the gays because they're so dramatic that it's made her want to set herself on fire. No, but seriously, much like Carol had Alice do all the work, I feel like Curtis did a much better job of making my argument than I did. So I feel like there's a certain symmetry to that. Kara, are you sticking with Lucille?
100%.
Amy, are you sticking with Carol?
Yes, I think delegating her authority over the children to Alice is being a great mother.
Okay, that's another good argument. There you go. Oh God, I'm really so I'm the decision here because if it's a tie, if I switch to Carol, she's a 2 seed, she would advance. Lucille is a 6 seed. Here's my feeling. If we're looking at the overall pantheon of TV moms, Lucille is hilarious and I love her and I worship at the ground of Jennifer Walters. But Carol Brady is a better TV mom.
Jessica
That's my
Walters,
argument.
right?
Yeah.
Jessica Walters. Jennifer Walters is She-Hulk, everybody. We just recorded the Avengers episode last night. That's why I'm doing this. Yes, I worship at the altar of Jessica Walters. Thank you. I think that Carol Brady is a better TV mom. That's why I'm voting for her over Lucille. But Lucille is a much better character. So that means 2 and 2, and Carol Brady would advance.
Yes.
She's the mommest of moms.
Mm-hmm.
She's the mommest of moms.
And I'm fine with it, with her moving forward because of that.
Okay. She's also going up, I believe, against Sophia Petrillo in the next round.
Yep.
So it's over. Half of our panel was tuned into Linda Belcher from Bob's Burgers, a 1 seed, while the other were in favor of ballroom goddess Blanca Evangelista, a 5 seed. And I say that, but I actually don't know if we're half and half on this. So I want to go around the room. Kara, where are you on this one? I'm assuming it's Linda.
Yeah, Linda.
Yeah. Curtis?
I don't know.
I know. Amy, you don't have a horse in this race, do you?
I've never seen an episode of either of these shows, so I will let you guys argue to me and I can decide.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to have Kara take Linda, and I will try to do Blanca, and we'll go from there. Kara, why don't you give me what you got for Linda Belcher?
Look, Amy, I'm going to write a figure down in this piece of paper. I'm going to
This is
slide
exactly how
I'm
we
going
should
to
be
slide it
communicating, yes.
across the table, and you just take a look, and you let me know what you think, okay?
Are you actually
Bribery is
Louise
one-
Belcher, Kara? That was really well done.
It is very much Louise Belcher. I didn't even think about that.
And I will say that as someone who has made erotic friend fiction for Kara Austin, that is not a joke. It exists.
I was like,
There is
I
a
feel like that
notebook.
needs a little. That was a birthday present, a group present.
It was. She is actually all of the various characters from Bob's Burgers rolled into one.
Wow. That's gonna be out there on the internet
That's
now.
on the
All right.
podcast. That's here. Get into it.
So I feel a little ill-equipped because all I know about Blanca is what you guys talked about earlier, because I've not watched it. I had the same problem Eric did as far as like the first 2 episodes I watched. I was like, and then I gave up. But I know now that I should go back. But again, as far as like best mom, so Linda and Marge kind of occupy similar spaces for me, whereas Marge, in part of her parenting, is also kind of processing her own trauma of her, like how her mother raised her. Linda's detached from that. Linda's very comfortable in her role as mom and in what she's doing. She always believes she is doing the best she possibly can. And is not not really forcing her kids to carry some of that trauma forward. She's just so supportive. She's there for the kids no matter what the weirdest things they want to do, like write erotic friend fiction. There's a moment I think Tina admits that she does that, and Linda's like, make it weird and sexy or something like that, which is just like, oh, I think that's not saying something I would want my parent to say to me, because I think I would just like curl up and die. But that's what Tina needs to hear, and it supports her being the person she is. And in that kind of pantheon of sitcom moms, I feel like Linda Belcher, while she hasn't been around as long as the Carol Bradys of the world, I think she's up there with them as far as like her mission in life is to keep her family together, to support her children, to support her husband and their business. And they have, it's not a perfect relationship, but it's a relationship built on love. And she'll follow Bob and her kids down weird paths just to be supportive, and they will do the same for her, which I think is really important. That's a difference from Marge. If Marge was going to do something that was outside of the beat of the family, she kind of had to go do it on her own. Linda, it might be so goofy that people are going to laugh about it at first, but the family will be with her.
That's fair. I love Linda Belcher. I think she's great. I do think she is, you're right, in kind of instantly in the pantheon of TV moms. Here's my argument. I think if we're looking at this bracket right now, Linda and Marge are kind of a little redundant, not just because they're both cartoon moms, but I feel like they're similar in certain ways. Although, as you pointed out, Linda has a much better quality of life and a much better family unit than Marge ever has. There is nobody else on the bracket like Blanca Evangelista. You want to talk about struggles. Blanca is trans. Blanca is HIV positive. Blanca is a woman of color. Blanca is financially strapped, but still finds a way to open her own business, her dream business. Then it is run by Patty fucking Lupone, who then tries to boot her out of, and actually I believe does set the place on fire to get her out. She is in the ballroom scene teaching her adopted children, not actually adopted, but like they're her children essentially, not only how to walk the ballroom scene, and they do, they're fabulous, but also how to be good human beings. She's actually so invested in their growth. And also she's mothering her own mother, because in season 2, her ballroom mom, Electra, comes back because she's fallen on hard times. And Blanc is an amazing support system for her. She is an incredible inspiration. In a way that I don't think that you can say for Linda. I think Linda is a very real mom, and I think Blanca is an aspirational mom, and that is why I'm going to vote for Blanca here. No disrespect to Linda. So I'm going to bring it back to Amy. Where are you on this one?
I'm going to go, and Kara, I just want to say that your testimony here was heartfelt, and I could feel the passion. I'm going to go with Blanca, though, for the representation, also because she took down Edna from Facts of Life before, and Edna was my 1980s non-typical mom, which clearly Blanca has blown out of the water as being non-typical. So Blanca for Edna all the way.
All right, Curtis, where are you?
A friend of mine is actually the creator of Pose, Stephen Canals. Fantastic person. I used to work in higher ed with him. Hey, Stephen, I'm sure you're listening to this podcast. So for that alone, because literally this is Sophie's choice. I love Linda Belcher. I love Bob's Burgers, but I also love Pose, and I love what Blanca stands for and what that brings to this bracket. And if for no other reason than to hopefully get people to actually go watch Pose, to give this a chance, because other than like the sizable gay population who's listening to this right now, if you haven't watched Pose, give it a shot. Like, it's super interesting, and you will absolutely learn something that you didn't know before. So, Blanca.
Okay. By the way, I believe the first 2 seasons of Pose are on Netflix. Check them out. The first few episodes are not great, again, but it gets so much better. By the end of season 1, it's amazing, and season 2 is incredible. So we are going to move Blanca forward. I hope you're okay with that, Kara.
I'll live.
Okay. Next up, last round, Gloria, Delgado, Pritchett basically moved from Modern Family, a 2 seed, basically moved forward out of a deference. No one really cared. But this time she's up against Harriet Winslow from Family Matters, who is a 7 seed, but I'm pretty sure is unanimously moving forward here. Amy, are you with Harriet?
Yes.
Curtis?
Yep.
Kara?
Harriet all the way.
Harriet all the way. And with that, we are done with round 2. So we are going to take a quick break to check on your father. It's never that good when he's this quiet. So we will be right back. Hey, Kate.
Hey, Eric.
So I heard, and this may be true, that you were actually the Great Pop Culture Debate's very first Patreon subscriber.
Was I?
You were. You're not only a panelist, you're also a founder.
Also a founder. I mean, it does give me a feeling of joy to contribute towards high quality podcasts like the Great Pop Culture Debate so that, you know, like I get swag.
Yeah. What kind of swag do you get?
You get a button. That's the one I signed up for. Is there a tote? I feel like there should be a tote.
There's not a tote yet, but that's a great idea. I have some other ideas that I'm working on.
You get access to things early. You get access to Patreon only little mini-sodes. You get to hear the warm-ups before, when everyone's just kind of getting their little sea legs before they get into the main attraction. And you get season 0.
You get season 0. It's exactly right. You will never hear that otherwise, folks. And there's some great episodes in that, which include Best Madonna Single, Best RuPaul's Drag Race Lip Sync, Best 90s Cartoon. And the only way you can hear those is by getting a Patreon sponsorship for as low as $2 a month. Then you even get season 0 just for that. So thank you very much, Kate. We appreciate all of our Patreon sponsors. And if you do have the interest, please go to patreon.com/Great Pop Culture Debate and support us. Welcome back to the Great Pop Culture Debate on the best TV moms. We have winnowed things down to our Elite 8. And I just want to say to my panel, I'm not mad at you for your choices. I'm just disappointed. So first up, we have Moira Rose from Schitt's Creek versus Catelyn Stark from Game of Thrones. I'm going to go around the horn. Kara, who are you voting for here?
I think I'm going to go with Catelyn Stark on this one.
All right.
You're
Amy?
getting down to it.
We are. Amy, what about you?
House of Stark.
Curtis?
Moira Rose, please.
You are outnumbered this time. I am 100% voting for Catelyn Stark over Moira Rose here. If it finally happened,
Can I
may have been...
give one minute of argument to try to sway someone?
Absolutely. Let me hear it.
The reason that Moira Rose belongs on this bracket and deserves to move forward is because she had to learn to become a mother. Moira they were rich. In the beginning of the show, episode 1, they were a rich family. It was very much the Lucille Bluth, the kind of the Carol Brady. Like you had someone else who was taking care of your kids. You paid them to take care of them. She didn't she didn't have a relationship with them. And throughout the show, she had to learn to become a mother as like this 50 or 60-year-old woman, which I think is such an interesting perspective that no one else on this bracket currently does. And I think she becomes a really good mother. She learns to care for them. She learns to support them in ways. She helps them to, get back out there when they've had their hearts broken. She encourages her kids to open a business or to become whatever it is Alexis does, PR. Like she encourages her children and supports them. And by the end of the show, you fall in love with her, not only as a character, but as a mother. And I think I really like Catelyn Stark. I think that she's a strong mother. And yes, she died for her children, but did she have to? Well, maybe if they had made better choices and she had taught them better. Just saying. Moira all the way.
Ouch. No, that was actually a really good argument, Curtis. The fact that she became a mom in life, that actually is very compelling to me. But she did not only did Catelyn die for her children, Catelyn survived for her children, because let us not forget that the whole series started with Bran being attacked, pushed out a window, and then attacked again, and she literally had to protect him by having blades cutting into her hands. She went to the ends of the earth to save all of her children. She lost Rob, but who saw that coming? Like, I watched that episode with Kara Austin. Kara, did you see that coming?
No.
No. And you can argue that she was only around for the first 2, maybe 3 seasons of the show. But as I think Amy said earlier in round 1, Catelyn's presence is felt through the entire series. When you look at who's ending standing at the end of that show, it's because Catelyn was a fiercely protective mother. And obviously you don't want moms that are in the position that they have to make those kind of choices. But I don't think there's anybody else left on this Elite 8 right now, except maybe Blanca, who would even have the strength of character to make the kind of choices that Catelyn does. And that's not even counting about what happens to her in the books, which is a completely different story and a whole other podcast. So with that being said, we have 3 votes for Catelyn, unless anyone's changing their votes to Moira. Kara?
I'm sticking with Stark.
Amy?
Nope. Solid.
All right.
Stark.
Catelyn moves to the final 4. Next up, in what I honestly think could have been a final 2 battle, it's Clara Huxtable from the Cosbys versus Marge Simpson from the Simpsons. I want to start this time with Curtis.
Marge Simpson. She is...
Amy.
Great.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
I didn't know if I needed to make my case now, or are we just voting?
I'm just doing around the horn to see what people's takes are. Amy, where are you?
Simpson.
Claire Huxtable.
Oh, okay. And Kara?
Marge Simpson.
Yeah, Marge too. Do you want to make an argument for Claire, Amy, or are you understanding where we are with this?
I am understanding you are all very passionate about Marge. I don't feel the same way, but I am not willing to, go out on this one.
Interesting. I do want to hear your feelings on Marge when we go to the next round, but do you want to save your argument, Curtis, until then?
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. Next up, it's Sophia Petrillo versus Carol Brady. I'm going to start with Kara.
Sophia.
Yeah. Amy?
I don't care for Carol.
Okay. Amy?
This is a tough one because I'm torn between best character, best iconic mom. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I think Sophia is the better character and also a great mom, so she knocks out Carol Brady. I'm going to go Sophia Petrillo.
Curtis.
I have to agree. I think Sophia is both a terrible mother and a wonderful mother, and I think that makes her very interesting.
I agree with that.
Too. It's like, who would I rather have as my mother? And I think it's Sophia.
Although Carol does have that amazing flip hairdo. But yeah, it's Sophia.
She's going to share those secrets with you.
That's true. She might not. She's a glamorous lady. She keeps them to herself. And finally, in the Elite 8, it's Blanca Evangelista from Pose versus Harriet Winslow from Family Matters, who we haven't really discussed that much. I want to start with Amy. Where are you on this?
You've made a really solid case for, and I might have to watch Pose now because I know nothing about this show, but I don't know.
Should I come back to you?
Come back to me. Let's see if my vote matters.
All right, Curtis.
So let's talk about Harriet, because even in the warm-up, we haven't talked about Harriet at all. And when we first saw the bracket and the seedings, I reached out to Eric and I was like, I am livid that Harriet Winslow is a 7 seed, that she would be this low. Harriet Winslow was, to me, that was Friday Mom. Like, that was the quintessential Friday Mom. I watched her on TGIF. I loved the sassiness. Like, I think it had an impact on me growing up, because I didn't watch a whole lot of shows that had people like Harriet Winslow who stood their ground as much as she does. And she had a lot of children in that house, and I feel like she did a great job of taking care of them when they made mistakes, when they got caught up with the wrong crowd, when they made the choices that we were all making when we were in high school. She still cared. And while she was like the tough love mom, and I really appreciated that about her, this one's really hard, because it's like 2 Cinderella stories. You have 2 very low seated, not teams, 2 really low seated moms here. God, I'm going to vote for Harriet, just because I think that it was totally unfair for her to be as low as she was. And I think that she's really fantastic.
Okay. Kara, where are you on this one?
I'm with Harriet. I know when I was filling out my own brackets, like going into the final, in the way I was doing it, I had Harriet versus Marge, and like my soul was tearing apart. For all the reasons that Curtis mentioned, and also like on top of being the tough love mom, she was like she saw the best in everybody while also still like holding them to account. Like, she was the one who advocated for people to be nice to Steve, Steve, to Steve Urkel. She was, the one who would come to his defense and like, you guys need to knock it off. He's a nice kid. He's a little weird, but it's like, he's still a person and you have to treat him as such. While, for everyone else in that show and the audience, he was a punchline. And I think there's something really special about that.
That's lovely. And I have to say, for as hard as I've stumped for Blanca, I appreciate that argument, because, I mean, certainly Blanca's standing up for the little guy too, and Blanca's holds her ground and all of those things. But I also think this is where I try to check my own personal leanings. And I think, are the vast majority of the people listening to this podcast even familiar with Pose and Blanca Evangelista versus Family Matters and Harriet Winslow, which is a show that we were talking about the Cosbys earlier.
Yeah.
I don't think that one's getting a lot of, like, when's the last time you saw Family Matters in syndication? Where's that on streaming? Like,
but I think another important thing I forgot to mention is that not only is she taking care of her children, and is she Carl could get all wound up about anything, and she was, the kind of steadfast one there, but she also took in her sister.
Right.
Was it Rachel? And Ricky, I think, was the little kid. So like, she keeps bringing, I haven't seen Pose, but we talked about with Blanca, like bringing more people in. It's like, if she had the ability to care for somebody else and give them a safe place to be and, encourage them to do well, she's doing that too. And that kind of extends next door to Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. Amy, have you made a decision here?
Family Matters is where I was going to go with this. I was curious to like hear what everyone else said. So yeah, I'm good with this.
I'm okay with it too. Blanca had a great run, and nothing but respect to her and the show. But I think in terms of overall TV pop culture awareness, I have to give the nod to Harriet just for that. And people can come for me on that argument. It's not a great argument, but that's where we are. So final 4, Catelyn Stark versus Marge Simpson, Sophia Petrillo versus Harriet Winslow was not the final 4 I was expecting. Not at all. I would have definitely expected Clara Huxtable in there for sure. Maybe even Carol. But I think it's fascinating and very different characters. So I'm going to start with the first one, Catelyn versus Marge. Go, Kara.
I'm on the Marge barge. I'm riding it all the way. I'm riding it all the way to the finish line.
All right, Curtis. Let's see if we need to make an argument here, because you might want to save it to the final 2. Curtis?
I looked up the line that Kara was talking about, because I remember that episode, and it's always be yourself. If you want to be sad, honey, be sad. We'll write it out with you. And when you get finished feeling sad, we'll still be here. And it's Marge Simpson. It's every day of the week.
Amy, you don't care for Marge. Are you voting for Catelyn here?
Yes, I am. I am, again, House Stark all the way. I realize I'm going to be I'm the villain of this episode, but I don't like The Simpsons.
Interesting. Tell me more.
I don't. I mean, I understand it predicts the future. I get it. It's crazy. It's been around for much longer than my children. Like, I get it, but like, it's just not for me. So I don't relate to it the same way. And I'm not saying that I relate to Catelyn Stark the way I do Claire Dunphy, who's my homegirl. But I think I have to just stay with Catelyn Stark here. She's the mom that, you know, I'm gonna have to stick with because I don't like The Simpsons.
That is fair. I will say for me that it is Marge, so that's 3 for Marge. You can hold on to your arguments for next round. The final 4, we have Sophia Petrillo versus Harriet Winslow. I'm going to start with Curtis.
I kind of am pulling an Eric. As hard as I stumped for Harriet Winslow, Sophia Petrillo is she was the mom that I adopted when I watched the Golden Girls. Like, I mean, you kind of make all of them your mom, but Sophia was the mom's mom, and that made her special. Harriet's fantastic and amazing, but Sophia, when you look at the character outside of being a mom and then the character plus being a mom, I think Sophia comes out on top.
And usually Blanche is the one on top, so that's impressive. Amy, where are you on this one? Sophia versus Harriet.
Sorry, was that me for Amy?
Yeah, sorry.
I'm gonna go with. This is just not the way I saw this playing out at all. So I'm a little shell shocked, but in this matchup, Sophia Petrillo, yes, because this should have been Clara Huxtable, but so Sophia Petrillo.
I do not disagree. I am shocked that Claire was not there. Both of the Claires got knocked out. Yeah. You're over here.
All the Claires. Yeah. Cindy Walsh didn't even make it. I'm not sure why I'm here anymore.
Well, you're doing a great job.
Thanks.
Kara, what about you?
I'm sticking with Harriet Winslow, and I'm looking at it through the lens of, wait, what happened? I'm looking at the lens like, who would I rather have be my mom if I had, got to choose that? And while I love Sophia, I don't know. I would want the guidance and the tough love, but also the warm heart of Harriet Winslow.
That is very sweet. I have to say, if I had to choose one of those, I 100% would want the shadiest one, because I would want to usurp her power, much like the rule of 2 with the Sith. I would take her place at one point, much like Dorothy and Sophia in real life. In fact, here's a canon. They're Sith. And Sophia is the leader and Dorothy is the student. So I believe that's 3 for Sophia and 1 for Harriet. So we have a final 2 of Marge Simpson versus Sophia Petrillo. I did not see this coming for the final 2. Let me say that. And I want to start with Amy. I think I know where you're going here. So why don't you get your vote out there?
I almost want to abstain because I just don't think this is it. But I guess if this is it, then it's Sophia Petrillo.
It's the choices we have to make. I mean, that's very mother, right? Like, sometimes you just have to deal with what's life handing you, right?
Yes. And she is, Kara, I will say, I don't know that I would want her to be my mother, but I think that I would enjoy her as my grandma. So.
Oh, totally.
And
I think she would have excellent candy, by the way.
Yes.
She probably would.
And she's definitely got, liquor stashed in the cane. Like, she's definitely got a flask in the purse at all times. So she's a fun one to be around. I'd like her at holidays. Sophia Petrillo.
All right. Kara.
Marge Simpson. An alligator with sunglasses? Now I've seen everything.
And how about you, Curtis?
I did see this coming. I picked these 2 as my final 2. So
aren't you namby-pamby?
I am namby-pamby. Put that on
just like the Simpsons.
Put that on the shirt for me, namby-pamby boy. And who did I pick? I ended up picking Marge, and I think I'm going to stick with Marge over Sophia because my criteria from the beginning was 50% mother, 50% character. And while I think Sophia as a character is hilarious, she has some of the best lines and stories and story arcs throughout the entire show. She's very fun to watch. She is not great to her children all the time. She badgers and batters and abuses verbally, at least, her daughter, who she lives with, who is, sustaining her on a daily basis. And while she does love her son, who is a crossdresser, I believe is the term that they use in the show and the one that he chooses, that's her favorite child. So she's chosen a clear favorite and is not quiet about it. Marge does not pick favorites. She loves all of her children. She does not, while she definitely struggles with Bart, I think she still shows him love and support. And you don't get a better mother than Marge Simpson. So yeah.
I think she unequivocally loves Bart. I think she loves absolutely all three of her children equally. Although, I mean, I was going to say clearly Lisa's her favorite, but really Marge is Lisa's favorite because you think of the episode where the world is ending and they're like, I'm sorry, little girl, you have to choose one of your parents. And they can't even finish the sentence. And she's like, Mom, she sits right. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Marge has a little bit of an advantage because she has been a mother since 1988 and her children have remained the same age. I would be curious to know how Marge would be as a parent with teenagers. I think she would probably struggle with Bart, who I cannot imagine would be an easy teenager to deal with. But she also has had to put up with Homer, whom she clearly loves and he clearly loves her. But I mean, you want to talk about long suffering?
Yeah.
He's a fourth child, essentially. Marge is incredible. And I think we've touched upon this a couple times in the episode where she's both an amazing mom in her love for her family, but she's also a realistic mom in that she does fail. She tries really hard. Like there is no point when Marge is not trying really hard. But she fucks it up sometimes. She becomes a gambling addict. I'm trying to think some of the other. There's the one where she and Homer go away for like a weekend, and Grandpa's watching the kids, and they get taken by the state. Do you remember this?
Yes, and then they go to the Flanderses.
They go to the Flanders.
And then she has to go and petition them, and they're like, we took your drug test, and you checked, you tested positive for crack and PCP, and she's like, the only thing I am high on is LSD. Love for my son and daughters. It's so stupid, and I'm sorry, Amy. This is probably boring you to tears.
And she also, you see her struggling to live up to an ideal she has in her head too, because so often she's trying to pull them back from like the slovenly nature that they're inclined to. Like there's the one where they're all, I don't know if and that's the thing, Simpsons in the early days, the episodes are written and they're so tight. Every possible visual gag in line is just moving the plots forward, and then the A and B plots kind of start off so separately and then intertwine in the middle, and it's really good writing. And that's why, like, after season 12 I'm like, something's happened here and I'm not as interested. But there's one, they're just watching TV and eating, and she's like, I'm gonna go in the dining room to have a conversation. Does anyone want to join me? You're all welcome. And then nobody looks up, everyone's just still watching and eating, and then she's off screen and you just hear her, hello Marge, how's it going? How's your family? I don't want to talk about it, mind your. And she's having this whole conversation where she ends up arguing about what she's upset about.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know about anybody else with that. Again, I said in the first part, in the warm-up, that Roseanne was the closest to seeing my mom on screen, but that Marge Simpson was also very close to my mother. So I have empathy towards Marge, but also a tremendous amount of respect for her. So Amy, my assumption is there's nothing we're going to be able to do here to sway your vote.
No, I still don't like The Simpsons, but but Marge sounds great.
That is, you know what, we're gonna take that. So I think with a 3-1, and Amy is, I think it's completely understandable to vote for Sophia. She's not a bad pick in any way, but that is our pick for the best TV mom. It's Marge Simpson. Do you agree? Do you think that we need to book a therapy appointment with Dr. Marvin Monroe? Tell us how you really feel by leaving a comment on this episode at greatpopculturedebate.com, or find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube. While you're there, make sure you subscribe and follow the podcast so you can hear all about our new debates coming soon, and vote in open polls, and even decide which topics we tackle next. So I want to say thank you to my panel. You always make the best after school snacks, and thank you for listening. If you loved what you heard, please consider supporting us on Patreon, where you can get even more exclusive content and you get episodes a whole day early. We hope that you have a good one, and remember, everyone is entitled to their wrong opinion. Now, where do we think you're going dressed like that?